The problem is when we're looking at relationship and we want relationships to be better, typically we are wanting someone else to change so that we can remain the same. So we want to stay at our level of ignorance, yet we want others to become wiser in how to deal with us. But that's not wisdom for us. That's not wisdom for them. That's actually passivity, being pathetic. It's not pathetic, but it's passivity on our part. So what we have to realize, if we want better relationships, that we don't have them because we lack the knowledge or the understanding on how to have better relationships, which is, when I say we lack knowledge and or understanding on how to have a better relationship, what I'm really saying is we are ignorant in that area. We might have some general knowledge of relationships or how we think relationships are supposed to work, but we're ignorant on our part. So we need to move from ignorance to knowing something about relationships, to knowing something about how they operate, how they work, how we can have better relationships, not perfect relationships, but better relationships. I love are we getting 10% better, 10% healthier, 10% richer over this next year? Are we 10% happier? Are we 10% more prophetic? Even on those fuzzy things like happiness or joy or peace or contentment or spirituality or walking in our spiritual gifts, am I 10% further along? That's like really important. So when it comes to relationship, most of us are pretty ignorant on how to build relationships. So we can learn, we can know something, we can go and gather information, and then over time, as we gather enough knowledge, enough information, we will begin to get an understanding. If we don't stop, often we stop pursuing because we're like, it doesn't work. Or we're so ignorant that every bit of knowledge seems to like punch us in the face and say, you should have already known that. You didn't know that. I can't believe you didn't know that. Or as we hear knowledge, we're like, that's not going to work. And that is us speaking out of our ignorance. So most of the time, many times, we don't even get to, let alone get to wisdom, we don't even get to understanding of how relationships work. Similarly, in the same way with finances, a lot of people say, I don't want more money. And that's a ridiculous statement, because we are willing to say, I would like to be able to help orphans, which is a way of saying I wish I had more money. Or I would like to help out pastor so-and-so, missionary so-and-so, but I can't right now, which is a way of saying I wish I had more money. Or we say, I wish I had a better car. I would love a new car. I haven't had a new car in years, and my air conditioner is not working. I wish I could fix my air conditioner, as a way of saying I wish I had more money. Money is an important factor. Of course, it's not the most important. We all know that, but we don't have to clarify that every time. All right? But I hear people all the time say, I wish I could take a vacation. I would love to travel to so-and-so. And a big part of the reason is time or energy, but it's also finances. And those are ways of saying, I wish I had more money. Okay? And most of us haven't learned anything new about money for decades. And we need to get some knowledge on money, how it works, what it means, what it represents, what it can do for us, what it can't do for us. Have some knowledge in those areas is super, super important, because we don't have an understanding. And I can tell people who don't have an understanding of finances when they say, I would never get a rental house because that's just like a money pit. Could be true. Not true for my son, who's bought 4 or 5 houses, and he's only 35. He started to sell them this last year or two. But also, when I hear people say, well, a stock, and I've heard people say this, I've heard people directly tell me, to put money in the stock market, you might as well go and gamble. You might as well flush it down the toilet, which tells me their knowledge is all wrong. They're ignorant in a really powerful, deep way of they've got wrong knowledge. So probably having the wrong kind of knowledge leads to the wrong understanding, which means our wisdom is never wise. Our acting out is never wise. Our acting out is actually foolishness and the opposite of what's real. That's important to remember, that it is okay to want more money. I would say everybody I know wants more money. But we keep it like in a weird spiritual false humility. I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be prideful sort of way. But I always come from the foundation of everybody wants more money. That's okay. And most of us have enough money to have a pair of shoes, a pair of pants, a couple shirts. We don't need more clothes than that, but we want more money to buy more, and we use our money on those things. So I'm getting off track there. So that's an important thing to remember, even with our health. So most of us have some knowledge of health, but most of our knowledge of health is like just a generalized knowledge of being against stuff. We see a lot of health now with Robert Kennedy Jr., RFK. Robert Kennedy Jr. I think that's RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr. Yeah, RKJ, RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr. about how bad industry is, how bad the commercial food is, how bad things are. But it doesn't lead us to any understanding of how our bodies work, what is good for our bodies. What should I be eating in the morning? What should I be eating in the evening? What does my body do with carbs? What does my body do with sugar? What does my body do with salt? Get some knowledge about me. And you've never been able to get so much knowledge about you than ever before in the history of humanity, yet we don't do it. We get our knowledge on Facebook. That's a generalized knowledge talking about 7 billion people on the planet and talking about government and policies and politics and processes, rather than talking about me and the wisdom I have of how I live my life in a healthy way. Don't get me wrong. Being healthy, being a good weight, being energetic, being full of having your brain functioning well. Those are not easy things because we're so occupied with being busy in so many areas. So when we find out where am I ignorant in this area of my health, then we go to, what do I need to know? I need to know my numbers. If I say what numbers, be like, I don't care about my cholesterol. Cholesterol's good for you. I don't care about my blood pressure. I don't care. I'm not taking any blah, 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 blah. The thing is like, that could be true for some people. That could be true for some medicines, but you probably have never even watched a video on how your heart works, what blood pressure is, what cholesterol is. You're just picking up social media feeds with little tiny bits of information, and you're getting a lot of false and or superficial knowledge, because superficial knowledge is really kind of a false knowledge. Superficial knowledge is, we want that stuff to like draw us in to be deeper so we know more about that. So we go from ignorance in our health, specifically to me and my health, and then knowledge, and we begin to understand. Now, I have a really difficult time understanding how the body works. I read about the blood pressure, things like that, cholesterol. Just at church, had a friend who's 11 years younger than me, have a massive widowmaker, almost died. Actually, he told me he died for 6 minutes in the ambulance, but And then just last Sunday, a guy was telling me he's probably 10 years younger than me, had a stroke. I'm like, but we're ignorant. We don't understand. But when we do know something, we don't go anywhere with it. We just repeat it as if we understand it. But knowledge is meant to lead to understanding. It's meant to lead to wisdom. And wisdom is always what? Wisdom is always action. Wisdom is always, I'm going to apply this. I'm going to work out 4 days a week. I'm going to do cardio 2 days a week. I'm going to take a walk. But what we do is we say to ourselves, our knowledge is, well, walking doesn't work for me. I don't lose any weight. That you're saying that's your knowledge, that's your understanding. So in your acting out, which is not wise, it's not wisdom to not walk, it's not wisdom to not exercise, but you're acting out that ignorance, that lack of understanding, or that maybe it's not ignorance, but that wrong knowledge that you've accumulated, that you've decided that the world says you should walk and be active and work out and lift weights and do these things and eat a certain way, but you've decided out of your own self that, hey, I'm not going to because it doesn't work for me. I don't need to do that. And we see very few people, there are some who can get away with just eating the way they eat, but most of us can't. We do see some people who just make fantastic amount of money, but most of us aren't that way. Most of us are very average. Most of us are very normal, and of course we have some mystical, supernatural secret sauce about us. We have that pixie dust on certain parts of our life, but most of us in our health, we need to generally follow good health habits. So, and I've also used like happiness. Where are we ignorant in happiness? And again, going back to relationship, is in happiness, most of us are thinking, if other people would stop doing this, then I would be happier. If other people would start doing this, I would be happier. And that is a wrong knowledge that you have. That's knowledge that doesn't line up with reality. The reality is your happiness is internalized, that you have a lot of control over that. Not complete control, not absolute control over relationships or money or health or happiness or spirituality, but we have a part to play, and our part to play in our happiness is far more important than who's president, far more important than if the earth is warming or if it's cooling or if that's true or false. What our pastor says or doesn't say, that happiness is very dependent upon us in a lot of ways. And with happiness, I mean the whole being blessed. I mean you're content, you're peaceful, you're thoughtful, you're kind, you feel good in your space that you're in, you feel good about who you're becoming, but it's also like you're happy, you're like glad, you're thankful, you're praising God. That's what I mean by that happiness. I like the word happiness. It's a little bit offensive to good Christians because they're like, no, it's not happiness. And they name other things. But in Scripture, the word blessed is happy. And it's such a big, deep, broad, powerful word, blessed is, but it includes happiness. So I don't want to, have a conflict over that, but I like it because I want to be happy. I do. Did you hear my voice go up? That means I really want to be. I want to be happy. I want to have contentment. I want to have peace and those things. I want to be connected to people. I want to be connected to the Lord, and that is actually happiness. That's being blessed. All right. So spirituality. Now, these things are fuzzy, right? Relationships, finances, and health are less fuzzy. All right. How if you want to if you're ignorant about how to spend your time or what your goals are in life, those are some more solid things. But happiness and spirituality are fuzzier goals or fuzzier things you want. But most of us, I think, are very ignorant. We lack knowledge. We lack information on how spirituality even works. We lack information on the division or the differences between spirit, soul, and body, between mind and emotions, and how our mind and emotions work, and how God speaks to us through different areas, and how God actually operates. So we're very ignorant about that. We're very ignorant about a complete narrative or view of the Bible. So we say a lot of things that we think are knowledgeable, but they really aren't scriptural. They really aren't aligned with the kingdom reality. And so we lack an understanding when we read. So therefore, we often are unable to walk out our spirituality. But I think we should be thinking a lot about our spirituality. How are we in our spirituality? Who are we in our spirituality? How does that look and work for us in our spirituality? And to not be ignorant, to know, what are my spiritual gifts? What's my spiritual story? What's my salvation story? And that takes us from ignorance to knowledge, to knowing, which can create an understanding as we're talking to God about what we're thinking about, what we're knowing, how we're moving from ignorance to knowledge to understanding. And that gives us then wisdom of how to act, to go to church and show up and be praying all week for a prophetic word. If you're a financial giver and that's a spiritual gift that you have, then you're praying, who do I give to this week? Is there anybody I give to? And then how do I give it to them? How do I best steward this gift and give that to them? Maybe you're an encourager, so you're going through the list of everybody you think you're going to see on Sunday, and you're praying individually for each of those people. That would be putting your knowledge and your understanding of who you are spiritually as a gift to the church, as a gift to the body of Christ, and that would be acting it out. That would be taking action. That would be wisdom.